Charles, overall, would you say this is a banner season for Celebrimbor?
I think that might be, yeah, no. I'm just getting ready my riposte. I think that may be somewhat premature. But more than that, I couldn't possibly tell you.
Hello, I'm Vero from Nerdist. So in the latest trailers, it looks like Adar and Galadriel may align together against Sauron. Can the two of you tease anything about that pair-up? What I like to call the meeting of the exes?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you put a really good point there that the thing that unites them is that they've both been deceived and hurt in the same way. It can make it quite a complicated allegiance.
Yeah.
Alliance? Both of them.
Both. Allegiance.
Allegiance, yeah. Neither of them are comfortable with it.
No,
I think particularly
otherwise.
for Galadriel, the thought that she could ever be anywhere near close to agreeing with Adar is just gross to her.
Yeah.
Don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm a bit offended about that, but I think that you're making some good points. Yeah.
Charlie, what would Sauron have to say about his two exes becoming allies like that?
That is a cracking question. It is, I think, it'd be a bit bitter, two old foes just, finally uniting against him. I think he'd probably be quite upset because I think he would hope that they would have joined him and be fighting alongside him, but that makes him all the more determined.
Of course it does.
To defeat them. They chose the wrong side.
They sure did. So in the series' latest trailers, we see both Gil-galad and Arondir take on Damrod the Hill Troll. Will we see the two elves fight side by side this season?
We can't tell you that.
What?
Can we tell you that?
I don't know.
I don't know if we can't tell you.
We
that.
can't
You don't
tell
want to
you.
know that.
You want to know, but you don't want to know.
Well, I mean, I think your instincts are keen.
Like an elf.
Yeah.
But how fun was it to face off against Damrod the Hill Troll, or voice him as it
That's right.
happens?
There's so many moments when we go to work where I can't believe this is actually happening.
Yeah.
Am I really on this horse riding through a muddy field and there's 100 orcs and the child in you that used to play pretend these parts in the woods, and then for some reason you've been able to convince somebody to pay you to do it for a living. I mean, it's humbling, and we're incredibly privileged to be able to take part. And yes, it's awesome.
It's so
is the
much
short
fun.
answer.
It's so much fun. I mean, to imagine that, to imagine that creature, and because we've had such a wealth of design and images to draw from, it was just so great to do that. I mean, the stunts related to that, which you haven't seen yet, are also things that pushed me and my abilities and my training to new heights, and quite literally. I'm super excited. I'm super excited for you to see it.
At San Diego, it was mentioned that there may be a queer character already on the Rings of Power. Will we explore that this season? And can you hint at who that character or characters might be?
Well, I was the one who took that question. And I believe what I said is maybe you've seen one already.
Yes.
So what I would say is maybe go back and watch season 1.
Anything further you can add? Because I watched season 1.
I will say no more.
So at San Diego, a love story was teased for Poppy and Nori's storyline. Markella and Megan, can you hint at what we might see?
Is it a love story between Poppy and Nori?
I mean, I hope so, but I don't know.
God, that ain't gonna happen, unfortunately.
No, that's not happening.
It could.
No, that's not happening.
But of course, Sauron is wooing a new elf now. How would you describe Sauron and Celebrimbor's relationship dynamic and how it evolves this season?
I think it's a game of power, actually. There are many mind games going on, and there's all kinds of things going on in this relationship. But ultimately, Celebrimbor holds on to his status, his ability, and his power, even in the thrall of Anatar. So there are moments where Celebrimbor, refuses or says no, and which Anatar doesn't like when that happens. Doesn't like that at all. Oh no. But it happens. I'm not purely a puppet. He maintains his status within the relationship.
It's like a psychological thriller, I think.
Do you think Galadriel regrets at all how callous she was in speaking to Adar last season, now that she's been kind of transformed by darkness.
Yeah, I love the way you say her name.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for the elves because they don't make a huge amount of mistakes, and you do learn from them, and with mistakes come wisdom, depending on how you manage it. And yeah, so I think, as Adar alluded to in the first season, he does hold up a mirror to her that is painful to look into.
And how would you describe both of your characters' relationships with Sauron in this season?
For you, I mean, they're a fresh,
Yeah.
it's fresh hurt.
And she's being haunted somewhat.
Is
But-
he whispering in her head?
Yeah, well, he does, doesn't he? I mean, I think he's relying on her being broken by what he's done to her, and she has to not be broken and step up when she's most needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that nice, thanks.
Thanks.
Daniel, Sauron and the Stranger seem to be kind of powerful inversions of one another. Will we see sort of parallels between them this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like in the one of the trailers that dropped, there was some allusion to, you know, the Stranger being told something about Sauron. I'm not entirely sure the Stranger knows what that means yet, but he certainly feels the darkness. I think he feels it through the earth, and he feels it in the air, and I think it frightens him, and he's beginning to think, oh, I don't know what my purpose is yet, but that sounds like something pretty important. Is it linked to that? And that could be pretty dramatic for him, I think.
I would love for them to meet. Because I just see you and Charlie.
Yeah,
Is there anything you feel about your characters in preparation or anything like that may not be explicitly discussed on the show? Anything you imagine about them?
I don't know how much it shines through in the show is Sauron thinks he's doing the right thing. And it's like he's trying to rehabilitate and heal and make Middle-earth a beautiful place for everyone. And he talks about it a bit to Celebrimbor.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, and Celebrimbor gets on board as well.
Not sure. It's a tough one. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I always say, you know, if someone's looking for a certain thing in a performance of a character that's known, it's there if you want it. You know, hopefully what our job is to present all kinds of facets of a character, and people look at it in different ways. Each person will view it entirely differently from the next person. So I always hope that they can pick out what makes them happy.
And for all three of you, what would you say the biggest changes in your characters are this season?
I think for Nori, the biggest change for her is that for the first time ever, she's not got her family surrounding her and kind of voicing their opinions after every decision she makes. So I think that's probably the biggest change for her.
I think the Strangers is, I mean, I feel like he's suddenly thrust into the Tom Bombadil world where somebody else has more power and uses it differently and in quirky ways that he doesn't understand, and trying to relate to that is a very new thing. I think he's just about got used to he feels settled with the interactions here. He feels trust probably for the first time, and belonging, and then suddenly this new character is doing things, you know, that he just doesn't understand at all, and I think that's very disconcerting for him.
I think changes for Poppy as well are like just different circumstances and different. She has to actively make decisions that she's never even thought about having to make before, and there's a different type of weight on her shoulders in this scary land.
This might be getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but Tolkien wrote that all living things were divided and present on the sides of good and evil during the last alliance of elves and men. Could the Rings of Power be gearing up for a world in which the orcs/Uruk are a part of the fight against Sauron?
Season 2 is very much concerned with who the orcs are, or they prefer to be known as Uruk. Well, actually, maybe that's a good way of saying it. Are they orcs or are they Uruk?
Yeah.
Is very much, you know, sort of one of the questions that Season 2 is interrogating. You know, we have this battle for control of Mordor and the Orc nation between Adar and Sauron. There's two snakes in a basket here, and you have to see who wins and how to see what the fate of the orcs will be.
And Sam, do you think Adar thinks of himself as an elf or an Uruk? And like, how much elvenness is inside of him?
It's a really good question. Nobody else has asked that, and it's something that I thought about a lot while we were shooting it, because Sam, personally, I think that he thinks of himself as an elf. He's a corrupted elf, and he made a decision long ago to no longer be an elf, to kind of relinquish his elfdom. And I think that perhaps he would not go that way if he was asked to do it. He was deceived by Sauron, didn't get anything like he wanted, and I don't think he really particularly wants to be here or to exist, but he's got this duty to his children who wouldn't exist without him having made this botched deal with Sauron in the past. So he feels this great sense of responsibility.
Okay, so just like one real quick last question. If you had to fight Sauron yourself, which Rings of Power character would you want on your side?
I really don't know the implications of this, but I'm going to say the stranger, because I have hope.
You have hope that.
Yeah. He might harness his power.
I'd love to see Tom Bombadil really go for it, but would he ever be bothered?
So I'm fighting not as Sauron. I'm just fighting
Yes.
as Charlie.
Against him. Yes.
It would have to be Arondir, wouldn't it?
Because he's the most badass.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
well,
kind of,
I
that's a
mean,
good place to start, isn't it?
I'd go over to old mate, the Stranger and Tom Bombadil. Because they're kind of like my, right?
Okay, yeah, that's
But I can only choose one of them. I'm going to choose Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, okay.
Got to say, some of those shots in the trailer of Galadriel and Arondir sort of somersaulting whilst shooting the fiery bows and arrows
Yeah.
is incredible.
But then is there someone who could sort of be slightly cunning in a different...
What about the spider?
The spy?
Oh,
yeah, Shelob, that'd
yes.
be great.
Yes.
Oh, it's Galadriel,
Galadriel.
obviously.
I mean,
yes.
please.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're like huge Galadriel
Or I'm
fans
Team
here.
Galadriel.
Yeah, team.
always.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
That's who I would say. Everyone has said Arondir, which I'm not mad about, but I was like,
Oh.
okay.
I mean, hey, that's a good. I mean,
He's-
safe bet.
yeah.
Very good bet.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would take him too, certainly.
Me.
And I would choose myself as well.
And so we know we'll be seeing the Siege of Erudion this season. Might we also see the first signs of Rivendell?
Oh gosh. No comment.